Welcome to the first episodes of Community Roots. Today we have Sharon Carson with us in the studio, and we'll be talking about her amazing story and her unique lifestyle.
Hi, I'm Sharon. Sharon from my gardens outside of Delmarva, Delaware. I've been there gardening every year for 47 years this fall.
Sharon, can you tell us a bit about your background and what inspired you to start living a self-sufficient lifestyle?
Started in the 60s, part of the Back to the Land movement. Right out of high school, I went to college. I dropped out of college and hitchhiked to San Francisco. And part of the original flower child exodus to the west. And I spent 10 years traveling all over America, getting to be educated about what America is all about from roots up, because I could not relate to college. And I was trying to find my own way and figure out what America was all about, just figure it out. Ultimately, I wanted to go back to my roots, back to the farm. And we ended up back here in 1978 with our little 11-month-old baby and an acre of ground and a completely falling down old homestead. So the rest is us completely rebuilding and restoring that homestead. Now we have 5 acres. We have 1 acre and then another piece of land around it that's pastures. And we planted hundreds of trees and restored the fertility of the soil over the last 50 years.
So when you say you came back, this property you came back to, this was already in the family?
Well, my mother, it's a mile from the house I grew up in. And all the roads back then were dirt. And I rode my pony bareback 5 miles around and visited all the other ponies in the neighborhood as a child. But this is a farm, a 10-acre farm. It was a chicken farm that my mother bought because it was the same price to buy a chicken house as it was to buy that whole farm.
Wow.
And that farm was built during the 1940s. So it was really falling apart. And 8 families had lived there. It had been around a while.
So you've rebuilt this place from when you came back to even what it is now?
Oh yeah, we restored it. If we hadn't have done all the work, and we had to remortgage, and we had raised 3 children and gardened, and my husband worked and I stayed home, and they don't give you Social Security if you stay home and take care of your kids in this country anyway. Yeah. You get no Social Security, but had he lived, we'd both be living on a very tiny budget. But we had created this, total Garden of Eden, and it feeds us. So it doesn't matter if your place you live feeds you, and everything's paid for and everything's fixed. It's worth it. I'd rather be there than in any apartment.
And how did you get into this organic farming? What originated that in you?
Okay, well, number one, almost everybody was organic back in the 50s because they didn't have all the chemicals. They didn't grow chickens the way they grow them now either, because we raised hatching eggs, and we raised the baby chicks right from and then they went out onto pasture, and then they got brought back in, and they even had yards, pasture that those hens got to go out on. So my job every morning before school was to pick up thousands of eggs and feed those chickens.
And when you said we, this was a family?
This was a family. My German-Swiss immigrant grandparents took us in. My mom was a single mom with 5 kids. So we all worked together as a unit, and we did everything. We grew all the food. We raised our own meat. We butchered the meat. We got firewood up together. We hoed the fields. We picked the corn. We put up the hay with pitchforks. And we had a little contest with the neighborhood boys, and they used bales because they were used to bales, and we won the contest because my grandmother had taught us to weave the hay, and then it was these big forks that would take it up to the loft and then bring it back, and then we were up there in the hot August weather with pitchforks, pulling it aside just all day long, just covered with sweat and dirt.
So it wasn't just the boys outside, it was the women and the men
well,
working.
There were 5 girls and my mom, and there was my grandmother and grandfather, and then my stepfather, or whatever guy she happened to be dating, and my brother was a little one, so he didn't have to do much because he was little, and he'd have to do housework because he was a boy. I don't know, he lucked out.
And what types of crops or livestock do you raise, and why did you choose those crops and livestock?
Well, I got involved with seed saving. We always gardened, and we always canned our food, and we were involved in 4-H. My first 4-H project was when I was 9 years old, was how to hold a rabbit. So I raised rabbits. I raised rabbits when I was a kid, but I raise rabbits now for meat. I raised silver fox, and I had the hides to learn to tan the hides. And I also have ducks for eggs and chickens for eggs, and I had horses, but there's 2 of them are dead and buried there. But my dream was to farm with horses. What I wanted was to get back to the same farm where I grew up in, but that farm is gone, just like almost all small farms are gone. They've been replaced by industrial agriculture. Although they say you shouldn't call it agriculture because you should call it agribusiness, because culture has been disappeared from agriculture. Because culture, the word means to care for. And we've lost the to care for part in exchange for this. So I grow, my main focus is to grow my own food and my own family's food, and to put it up and to learn how to, take care of all that. And I sell what's extra to help earn money to pay for what it started out. My husband said, we can't afford to feed your horse. So I started going to farmer's market, and I said, I'm not selling my horse. I'm a horse crazy lady, whatever. But, so I still have that one horse, and she is the basis of fertility for the gardens. Because I make compost with her manure, and it really helps. I compost all the weeds, and I put rabbit manure, chicken manure and stuff, but it's leaves from Salisbury. There's people that rake their oak leaves and bag them up, and I come and get them, and I use the leaves to mulch for bedding for the animals, because I don't use straw because it's all full of poison, and almost everything is full of poison. Really hard to find things that aren't sprayed.
I see.
So I started saving my own seed, and I grow peaches from peach pits, and I don't ever spray them. I don't spray the apples, I don't spray the pears, and they might not be pretty, but I got 1,000 jars of canned goods, and it tastes wonderful.
The seeds that you have, the flowers and the plants that you have in your garden, these were planted, like you mentioned a couple of years ago.
Some of my seeds I have saved for over 50 years.
50 years?
Over 50 years that I have saved the seeds from some of them.
So these are not GMO seeds?
Not everything is open pollinated. There's 20 or so different varieties of tomatoes. Some you cannot find anywhere. I mean, you can Google them and you can't find them. And mostly I'm really backing off of the whole thing because I can't even sell them anymore. I used to be able to sell lots of stuff, and now it's become, in the last few years, it's gotten harder and harder and harder because, it's the same with herbal medicines or anything else. And now I grow ashwagandha, which is a Ayurvedic herb that I started using for my own. I wanted to grow plants. When we went from 1 acre to 4 acres, I wanted to grow plants that could feed me and also keep us healthy, so we didn't need a doctor when I got old. So that was the motive, to start getting into herbal medicines more, because I was always fascinated with it. Because I harvested herbs when I lived in the high mountains of New Mexico and brought them down to the Spanish herbalists down in Santa Fe, because he couldn't go up in the mountains and I lived up there. So he taught me what it was, and I gathered it and came down to Santa Fe and traded it for kerosene lamps and wash basins from his kitchen shop. But anyway, so I've had an interest in herbal medicine ever since I was a child, and in the woods, and it was always part of, I don't know, I think in a past life I was, tuned into or whatever. I don't know, but I just have always had an interest in all things in forest. I always felt comfortable in the forest and on the land. So,
how do you maintain a sustainable organic practice on your farm? Like, it's challenging nowadays because you have crop dusters going by, and you have new pests that are coming due to global warming, new bugs, new type of beetles. How do you keep up with it? How are you able to keep it sustainable?
Okay, well, number one, I'm what I consider beyond organics, and I think the biggest thing you can do is change your mindset and learn to share with the bugs instead of expecting everything to be perfect. I'm not perfect. Why do I expect my food to be perfect? And number two is realize that anything, it's all part of the cycle, and it's a circle, and it has so much more flavor and more taste. It's got what I call the force in it. So what if you have, I find that it's far better food. I can go buy, even in the store, I can buy a shrink wrapped in plastic organic vegetable, and within a week it is rotten. It's got botrytis in it. I've never seen in my garden. I could care less if there's bugs in my garden. I don't pick them off. I don't spray them with anything because I have a total abundance. If something's rotten, I give it to the chickens or the horse. I cut the rotten part off. But I have 1,000 jars of canned peaches and applesauce, and I don't have to even can anymore. I don't make jellies anymore. I got enough for the rest of my life. So it's. And now I started dehydrating because canning jars have gotten outrageously expensive. Even the lids are like $6 for a little pack of lids. But if we switched and made a law that said every single container in a grocery store had to come in a mason jar, no more plastic throwaway stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's in people's bloodstreams now.
Yeah, the microplastic.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So if we just eliminate it, there's nothing wrong with plastic, but we don't need to be throwing it away. So if everything was in glass, you can have broken glass, even if it's dumped out to sea, then the ocean turns it into beautiful glass, and it's just not gonna get into your bloodstream, so it's safe. It's been around for hundreds. I've got canning jars that are from my childhood. I got some from New Mexico that were buried in the dirt that I still can use. You just need a new lid. It's insane that we have all this plastic.
So part of it that makes it sustainable is how you managed kind of to reuse and
Everything is recycled. The barn got torn down when I was pregnant with my middle daughter, and I was out there on the roof pulling off shingles and dismantled the roof of that garage when I was 8 months pregnant in July in 1981.
You were on top of a roof taking
the
shingles
roof the barn got pulled down with my
okay.
father-in-law. We did. My husband was working and hooked the chain up, and I drove the truck, and we pulled it the rest of the way down because it was dangerous. And we completely dismantled that barn and took all the lumber apart and rebuilt the other sheds and buildings because we couldn't afford to buy lumber, couldn't afford to hire anybody, so we just recycled that barn and built other buildings with it. But everything about the whole place is like that because there were no trees at all when we were there.
Wow.
The barn needed to be torn down, the house needed to be completely restored. So one step at a time, and the kids helped us.
Like you mentioned before, you had a lot of people helping you out with the farm. Right now it's mostly you, from what I understand.
Well, I have one young man that has been coming out for about 3 years, and he works for the Asplan, cutting the tree lines. He loves doing tree work. Yeah. So that's what he does. But he now has his own place, and he comes out and he gets plants and he gets seeds and he gets manure, and he's learning to compost, and So he, he doesn't come out very often. He used to come out a lot more often, but he's gotten more busy, and he's now taking care of his own garden as well as working full time, and it's a lot of hot work doing all the work he's doing. So,
Yeah.
but he came out and helped learn and butchered the ducks, because we just put 9 ducks in the freezer, and we have 5 new ducks that are going to start laying duck eggs, and duck eggs are so much better than chicken eggs. They're more healthier. And they're easy to take care of too, and they don't scratch everything up. The mulch, and they eat slugs.
Oh.
They eat slugs, lots of bugs.
And duck eggs, I hear, are very good for baking, or pastries.
They're good for everything. I make the most awesome cheesecake with them.
Oh, I'm sure. And what is the most rewarding part of your lifestyle?
Getting to live in heaven.
That's
It's like,
beautiful.
it's a sanctuary. It's so different. If you come there, you can see how different it is from all the places around me. It's like a park, but most parks are managed by a staff. There is no staff. I'm the staff. I haven't learned to clone myself. But, there's a wildness about it, but there's also a lot of nature that is like really there, like hummingbirds feeding on actual flowers, not sugar water in a plastic thing, and finding baby birds' nests and all kinds of stuff all over the place. You do have predator problems or whatever. There's groundhogs or there's rabbits and there's lots of snakes. And I don't have any issues with snakes.
Snakes are good.
Well, they steal my eggs, and I have a stick right next to my chicken crack, and I sometimes have to fight with them with the stick to get off of that egg. You're not paying for the feed, you snake, But at least they're not getting in the house anymore. When the kids were little, they would come in the house all the time. Great big 8-foot black snakes. And they lived there before we did. There are holes in the wall because they would come in to get the mice.
Oh.
And the snakes and the mice, that's why they're there. They were in the, so my grandfather told me it was really bad luck to kill a black snake. And so I've never seen a venomous snake on my property in my life, or growing up on the farm, ever.
Well, you mentioned with the insects and the bugs, snakes are like a pest control. They take care of the mice.
Well, they also keep away, from what I just heard, venomous snakes, because they're territorial. So if you got black snakes, the good ones, even if they steal an egg, instead of eating the rats or the mice or the voles,
Yeah.
I've seen toads in their mouth. I've seen baby bunnies in their mouth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They go for everything.
Yeah, but they supposedly keep the venomous ones away.
If you have a unique story or lifestyle, feel free to contact us so we can share it on our show. And to find out more, reach us at pack14.org. Thank you very much.